Welcome to the CTOX podcast. This is the place to be if you're a technology leader navigating the fractional CTO landscape. I'm Marissa Brassfield, joined by Lior Weinstein, the visionary behind CTOX.
Here, we cut through the noise to deliver actionable insights for CTOs at every stage, whether you're looking at your first five-figure client or actively building systems to scale.
That's right. You'll learn principles, not just tactics, to transform your technical expertise into a thriving fractional practice. Let's dig in. Welcome back to the CTOX podcast. Inspiration isn't random, it's designed. The most energized leaders don't wait for it. They build habitats where inspiration can thrive. Today, we're unpacking how entrepreneurs can create the conditions that keep them motivated, curious, and creative long after the first rush of building a business fades. Lior, welcome back. I love this subject. We talk about it a lot.
Yeah, we do. It's about the psyche of an entrepreneur and how can you stay positive and act. And this is exactly it's a thing. It's a force that people miss, and is a
It
big
sure
part,
is.
potentially a big part of their career.
It is. So let's start with the fundamentals. What is a habitat for inspiration, and why do so many entrepreneurs lose that spark as they grow?
So the context is the fact that inspiration is this force, right? And it's this force that when you feel inspired, one, it's a very positive force, right? And so you're in ideation mode, you're creating, you're looking at the half glass full, you're innovating. It's like new things that come to mind when you have that energy of inspiration. And usually people limit themselves with that energy to these environments where they're heavily curated and exotic, right? Where do you feel inspired? When I'm at, beachfront property in a five-star hotel, like, but you don't live there, right? So what are you saying? You're gonna feel inspired 3 times a year? And so I at least just have people ask themselves, when was the last time you felt truly inspired? Don't you want to feel that more often? Don't you feel like you should feel that more often? And the reason we use a word like habitat is because we're trying to describe something that's recurring and a part of your life as a whole. You live in, not you. It's where you grow and where you live normally, as opposed to where you travel to this one-time event that's probably not going to recur. There's a lot of value in that, and I do that too, and you do that too. I try to disconnect and go somewhere, but the reality is, in a creative profession like ours, you want to be in an environment where you constantly feel it, and just this understanding that staying inspired isn't about chance. It's about cultivating the right environment, people, and rhythms, and that could be small things. Like in my desk here, I have this Walt Disney quote, right? If you can dream it, you can do it. And it's a small thing, right? It's like under my desk. I don't stare at it, every day, but it's definitely there every day. So then when my eyes just like float around, suddenly they pass through a sentence that makes me feel inspired. I connect to it in a different way, and it puts me in that inspiration mode. And it's just kind of this spiritual chiropractic adjustment that puts you back into that mindset. So it's really referring to the space that you're in most of the time, and in that space, can you feel inspired or summon that power so you can bring it to your work every day?
Well, yeah, and we talk about with the functional technology framework that we teach inside CTOX, it's about creating these systems where growth is inevitable. Why not start with yourself, the business owner and the entrepreneur? And it really does become a fractal in that way.
hmm
What role does community play in sustaining inspiration? And how does curating who you surround yourself with actually affect your creativity and your sense of what's possible?
And there's a lot of ways to look at it. I think a lot of people understand usually the opposite. It's usually like their in-laws or their family, right? They look at it like, what's an environment that doesn't inspire you? What's an environment that triggers you? So it's very easy. Everybody has that. Everyone has that, and they understand that intuitively. But the opposite exists. So who you surround yourself, if you have the right mindset, and with entrepreneurs, and CTOX is an entrepreneurial program, you're usually the only entrepreneur in your friend circle. That's the kind of the default modus of entrepreneurs. And as you grow and you manage to cultivate and surround yourself with similar minds, right? So some either entrepreneurial minds or just open-minded, creative minds, could be even artists, right? It doesn't really matter. It's somebody that looks at the world as malleable. So somebody that doesn't look at the world as things are happening to them, but you're making things happen. So it's kind of reactive, proactive, all these different labels to basically say the same thing, that you have a chance to play and you should play, and it's an opportunity. If you surround yourself with people that are making things happen and have a positive mindset, you're way more likely to also make things happen and be positive. And if you surround yourself with people that are negative and have a negative attitude and they have a problem for every solution they see, then you're just going to get shut off. Right? You're going to get energetically shut off. You're going to get physically shut off. You're going to get annoyed. You're going to have headaches, right? I mean, how many people listening to this have been in a relationship or a meeting and suddenly they have a headache, or after they have a headache because they just all the mental energy was drained out of them because of the person they were talking to? Could be a family member, could be a friend, could be a neighbor, could be a client, could be a server at the restaurant. Doesn't really matter. It could come from any other human. So I think there's like, I moved an entire state to be, and I had good friends. Like I moved this year from Georgia to Texas, from Atlanta to Austin, and we had good friends in Atlanta, and but the environment that I managed to find in Austin created much more of that constant inspiration and support, because I'm not, in quotes, the only crazy one, and I also have something to look up to. So I find people that have success in areas of life, different areas of life, that I also am interested in. Could be family, could be sports, could be business, could be money, could be spirituality. It doesn't really matter. It's some kind of a dimension that they have progress and they're going into a direction that I also want to go, which means it's now easier for me to go. I believe it. I see it. And if I see it with somebody that I have a good emotional connection with, that makes me automatically think that I can also have it. I can also achieve it, which means it's aligning with my values. And now I can align my actions with my values and pursue it. um, and it's huge. Humans are a great inspiration for other humans, right? Because you automatically understand in some level that whatever you're seeing, the reason you understand it is because you are it. You are potentially it. Just like when you see somebody sing beautifully or play beautifully, you can appreciate it. You might not, you might understand they've been working on it for 20 years, but you also know that you can work on it for 20 years. So it gives you that sense of like, well, maybe I can. And yes, you can. And then it goes back to maybe I should and maybe I would. So big factors.
Yeah, there's like the proof it's possible part of it, but also sometimes momentum is contagious. And, Jim Rohn would say success leaves clues. So
Mhm.
there's all those things present when you've got a community that's around you that's cranking it in some dimension. I've also heard you say that if you want fresh ideas, go outside your bubble. What traps drain inspiration? And conversely, what habits or structures help leaders recharge?
The biggest trap is, um, the hubris you can develop with experience, because you get to this point that you think you understand everything about the thing that you know really well. And it's true, you do know a lot, but nobody knows everything. And there's this kind of feedback loop that happens with experience, because every time you're successful at something, you get this feedback loop of, I had an idea and it worked. So you think that the only idea, so you think you have all the ideas that work. And the reality is you don't. And people that have young kids see this, right? The first time your kid says something that you're like, oh, wow, I've never thought about it and I've never taught it. So you see that it came from somebody that physically is less than you, right? Like they're shorter. Their brain hasn't been on Earth for that long. They haven't been exposed to as much inputs as your brain, and suddenly they're coming up with an idea that you never thought. It could be just a way to say a word, or it could be some insight. Doesn't matter. It's a creative thing that you didn't teach them. And the first time you have that experience, you're like, oh, wait. Now, at this point in my career, I've also developed and collected different people that I know have different perspectives as me and different talent. And I just ask them for their opinion. Now I actually like to ask my kids about different things because they're older, so I can introduce more complex topics and just have them simplify it to heck, because that's what kids do. They simplify because that's the only thing that simplify by default. But also, like my wife, for example, she's more of an artist, more of the creative type. And when I can explain something to her, then she would explain it back in some analogy or metaphor from her universe that would make me understand it in a different way. So there's a lot of this. Um, First of all, again, the hubris, the humility, and understanding that, yeah, you might be a pro at what you do, but if you're stuck for a reason. If you could have figured it out, you would have already figured it out. So the fact you don't know the answer, and not know, and that's again another mental trick. You think that there isn't an answer instead of recognizing you don't know the answer, and these things are not the same thing. All right, so humility and hubris, and kind of this kind of bias of self-feedback loops, and well-developed sense of self-efficacy that can trap you in your own mind and not asking other people. As far as habit to go outside, I think it's exactly what I like to do now, which is just ask and explain, share your problem. Most people just don't share their problems. They're afraid. They think it makes them look weak. They think other people won't understand, and maybe some won't, but you really just need one person to understand. And you would be surprised how different kinds of intelligences can interpret your problem in different ways. And then they can reflect it back and they can mirror it, and you can have your breakthrough. You can have it unlocked. Like how many times, and this probably happens a lot of people at school. I remember when it happened to me in like middle school, where I was stuck on a math problem. And as I go to my brother and explain it, as I explain it, I solve it. How many people, listening to this had that experience of like, as they're explaining their problem, they're solving their problem. So there's just so much value in articulating. And there's something about saying it to another, and a lot of people do it with journaling as well, right? So they journal to themselves, they put the words on the paper, on the tablet, and suddenly the insight comes. But there's something about communicating with another human in particular, and I'm differentiating that from AI, that creates this emotional connection that gives a different weight to the responses and also gives a different style to how you articulate and different consideration. Because if you're explaining to a 9-year-old, right, you're going to get some extra brain cycles because you're not going to use jargon, right? And you still want to communicate. And if I'm communicating with my wife, saying she's an adult, she's grown up, but she's not a professional in my industry, so I can't use certain things, which makes me process it differently and makes them understand it differently. So I would say the best habit is tell somebody about your problem. Tell AI, tell your kid, tell your friend, tell your spouse, tell your coach. Just talk about it. And then the next one is shift your environment. So there's something about your current environment that you're in, and I'm talking about physical environment, that is for whatever reason you can like innovate in it. So go outside, walk, change your music, like something, go eat. How many people are food driven? Get good ideas with it. I'm personally like a bathroom shower kind of idea guy. So if I'm in a new room and there's water around, I feel different. So like changing your physical environment is a really great hack to try and unblock. Let's call it that. But as far as getting normal inspiration, set up get your favorite chair, your favorite drink, favorite music. Temperature is a big deal. Sound is a big deal. Temperature is a big deal, like wind and sensations. And then I do like the intellectual prompts. I like the quotes. Quotes are really nice. I also have like used for years. I used this service called Readwise, which is very cheap. I don't know how much it costs, but it connects to your like Kindle highlights, and it sends you daily or weekly, whatever you want, different like quotes you highlighted. And that's nice because again, it's these kind of intellectual adjustments that bring you back into focus of being in a creative space.
We've also got some really great quarterly rhythms. And we've talked in previous episodes about different masterminds that we belong to. And each of those have quarterly physical, move your body parts to another part of the world and connect in person with other entrepreneurs. To your point about sharing your challenges, your opportunities, sometimes just those conversations and talking to somebody who is also building a business, but in a completely different domain and part of the world, that is a great just uh, obstacle blocker, breaker. And then when we have our internal quarterly sessions, that's where our team comes together and we're developing great strategies. Often that's a recharging activity because everybody is there with a singular focus on how do we create the best quarter ahead possible. What's essential? What's really going to move the needle? And you get different people's perspectives on the business, and ultimately, it's about working on the business instead of in the business. And I think having those perspective shifts, where instead of going through the microscope, you're looking through the telescope and seeing what all is possible. That's huge.
And in the accelerator, that's why we started the peer progress group, so they can have this weekly group of people that are not them to talk about their challenges. Because as soon as you talk about it and you have other people that care and they understand what you're going through, then you're way more likely to just innovate, be in the right mind space, support other people. Supporting other people, by the way, it's another good hack. You might be stuck, go help someone.
Mm,
And as you help someone, you'll probably get unstuck as well.
yeah, just putting yourself in a place of service is
Mhm.
beautiful. Now, from a business model perspective, we talk a lot about this backstage, offline, but how do you align your business model with your personal passions so that your work energizes you instead of draining you?
Yeah, so there's a few things. Certainly, if your business drains your joy, it's not sustainable. And there's two dimensions you can work at. You can work at filtering out things that create misery. Like for me, I talk about it also, I don't like standing meetings, right? So part of it is the construct of how you create your business, and I try to avoid them. And sometimes I need to do them, but I try to avoid them. And identifying those things that take away energy from, right? So what kind of meetings you don't want to be in, what kind of work product you don't want to create, right? You don't want to produce. So that's very important. Filtering out the things you kind of know are these tripwires for your misery. The second piece is knowing what makes you happy. So for me in my career right now, most of my predictor of happiness is relationships. It's just the people I spend time with. And that's way more than the subject matter, way more than the subject matter. So I really try to make sure that my clients and my employees and my partners are all humans that I really like to spend time with, regardless of what we're doing. Doesn't matter if it's healthcare or trash hauling or manufacturing or tech. It doesn't really matter because I like spending time with that person. The other part, though, is that's part of the earlier training we do in the accelerator when people are trying to figure out their niche and their ideal customer profile. Is if they can align their personal passion with their business, that's a win-win-win because they every single thing they're going to do in the business with their clients, they're also going to get filled with energy, right? So if you like flying and you have clients in the airline industry, whatever it is, you're way more likely to have a ton of fun. If you like scuba diving and all your clients are scuba shops, you're gonna have way more fun. If you like restaurants and you have fine dining clients, gets who gets free, free seats to fancy dinners. So meaning, and for me, the model, I don't have a specific thing like that, but I have areas of life where I'm passionate about. So I'm passionate about healthcare and travel and like different areas. So I try to find projects in those areas. So I get frontline access to these experiences and to professionals in that industry. And that really makes it way easier to also same for me. I do a lot of nonprofit work. So I find nonprofits that I like that I can help anyone. But I try to find the ones that I really like their mission and their vision. And then it's a win-win for both of us.
I love that. And I'll only take on maybe 2 to 4 speaking engagements a year, if that. But they're going to be in really cool places where I can extend the trip, bring my family along, and make a little mini vacation out of it. So, when you realize your environment isn't inspiring you anymore, how do you reset? How do you design something that reignites that creativity?
Yeah, it's very important because if you don't rebalance, inspiration turns into obligation, and that certainly happens to me every once in a while. So there's different models. So one is you have the sometimes I just pull a parachute and I'm like, I need to disconnect for a week or go. And that's completely fine. Like, it's completely fine. And I'm so lucky to have amazing business partners like you and our team that are like, okay, go do it. Right? Go disconnect, go do it. Because that's just and we do the same. So if one of our team members needs to do it, we also support them because like just the mental health is such a big part of health, right? It's not just a physical aspect. So one, it's okay to have your usual suspects of these methods that you use to just pull the emergency cord, right? Break the glass, take it out, like whatever that is. If it's a week somewhere, a day somewhere, a month you need to work 10 hours a week instead of 40, whatever that is. But know that because that's useful. It's useful to have something like significant that that if you go through, you're going to be way better on the other side. But then I try to figure out the audit. So like you and I do this every once in a while where we find ourselves in like endless meetings and we're like, okay, what happened? Let's look at our schedule. Who do we need to hire? What do we need to change? What do we need to stop, keep, continue? And do we still need to do those meetings? Do we need to do this workshop? Do we need to attend that event? Right. So we kind of look at our schedule and try to audit and say, okay, what happened? Is it going to happen again? Like, did we commit to something that we didn't realize is not something we really want to commit to? Or maybe it was one time and we're like, okay, we shouldn't say yes again, next time. I have a lot of travel I canceled recently. And I had somebody just like 4 days ago ask me again about something. And I just sent them a voice message that my daughter sent me about like, Daddy, I love you the most. Can you just come and stay and not leave and never leave? I'm like, you listen to this and then ask me again if I should come. And if you ask me again, then I'll talk to you about it. Like, we'll see if it's worth it. But it adds another hurdle, right? It's a tool for me to make it a higher bar to say yes to something that in the past created some kind of an aggravation for me, right? So just raising your bar across the board about these things. So auditing what takes energy away from you. And then I think that's definitely the first thing to do before you find new things that give you inspiration because I'm a positive guy by default. I think a lot of people are just more like optimists by default, certainly if you're an entrepreneur. So protecting my negative stuff is more, meaning protecting like what is taking away energy for me has more yield than necessarily doing positive things because I am positive by default. But then it's about, okay, where am I missing inspiration? Let's find the retreat. Let's find a coaching event. Let's find, something that's going to fill up energy. And for me in our coaching space, I love coaching. But I love coaching. I love spontaneous coaching more than I love like prepped coaching. Meaning I love to be in a room where people ask me questions more than I love to plan for 1 week for a 3-hour webinar, right? And I do all of them. And if I can choose, and I would do the spontaneous one over. So I do the audit for the negative stuff, the thing that draw energy, and then I come up with ideas usually together because you're not in a vacuum of what can give me energy in other people, and usually that works out pretty well.
Beautiful. Well, for anyone feeling uninspired, remember, inspiration doesn't strike by luck. It grows in the environments that you create. So start small. Change your inputs, your surroundings, or your circle, and you can do it as soon as this week. Inspiration isn't random, it's designed. And if this episode sparked ideas, share it with someone who needs that reminder today. In our next episode, we're going to continue the conversation around mindset, but this one is around failure and reframing failure. We're going to talk about how to fail spectacularly and why owning your screw ups actually builds trust and is a good thing. I know you're going to have some amazing stories to share in that one, Lior. I'm looking forward to it.
I'll see you next time.
See ya. That wraps up another episode of the CTOX podcast. We hope today's conversation gave you the tools and inspiration to advance your journey as a fractional CTO.
And don't forget, if you want more in-depth support or to connect with our community of fellow fractional CTOs, visit us at ctox.com.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on the CTOX podcast.